Well, good evening everybody. It is Saturday the 7th of October. I'm recording this actually quite late in the day. It's about 7 o'clock now. My intention wasn't to leave it this late, but one thing led to another, and here we are. So welcome, first of all. I always forget to say welcome, but welcome to all my returning viewers. Welcome back, and to any new viewers, welcome, and I hope you enjoy spending a little time with me. I am very grateful. Hello Toby, yes that's right, I've started podcasting, so come and join the action. You're getting your own little fan club, you know. I am always amazed that people want to spend time with me, and I'm very grateful for the interest that people show in my life and in my projects and in my interests. As many of you will be aware, I have decided this month to take part in Vlogtober, and so I've been producing a series of videos each day, and the latest is just rendering itself now and will soon be uploading, so that will be on there shortly. But in those videos, I have touched on a bit of my life in the fibre arts, but I've decided to try and keep Vlogtober separate from my main podcast, so, to enable me to continue this series unabated. So, as I say, welcome to everybody, and for those who are new viewers, if you do enjoy spending time with me, please remember to subscribe, and you'll be notified when my next video is uploaded. I'm broadly, at the moment, managing a more or less weekly schedule. Occasionally life intervenes and I can't record on every weekend, but I do try to record most weekends. So, introductions. My name is Jared, or Peter, or Boniface. My baptismal name is Jared, so I'm known as Jared to my family, or Uncle Jared, or now I have 10 great nieces and nephews, Great Uncle Jared, which means I'm also the first word that all of these babies say, gug, 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 gug. I'm known as Peter in Oxford, where I work, simply for ease, because people usually render my name Jared as Gerald, which I really don't like very much. I'd rather be known by my second baptismal name, which is Peter, and my monastic name was Boniface, and so there are a number of people who still know me by that name, which I haven't surrendered as such. So my name changes broadly depending upon where I am in the country. So as I move north, my name changes. So I live in Abingdon-on-Thames in Oxfordshire in the south of England. Abingdon is a market town about 7 miles due south of the city of Oxford. I work in Oxford for a bus company, and in my spare time I like to crochet and knit and sew and weave, and soon, when I get round to learning it, spin, and then hopefully I'll be able to pick up dyeing and eventually, you know, maybe keep a sheep in the public area outside, so that I can shear my own sheep. It sometimes feels like I'm getting closer and closer to the original source material. Seriously, I'm not intending to keep a sheep. 2 cats are more than enough for me, thank you very much. So, for those of you who were with me last week, I saw my GP on Monday and we had a very good chat. Nothing has changed very much, and so we're just continuing to monitor the situation. My moods are... I'm broadly fine. My tiredness is getting less now, so it must have just been a phase of the moon or something, but I'm feeling a lot better anyway in myself, so hopefully I'll soon be picking up speed on all my projects again. I have got one finished object, yay! But I haven't really got to grips with the putting in the heels and toes of my socks yet, so I don't have that to show, but I think I might do that as part of my vlog episodes over the next week anyway, once I actually, you know, take the plunge and just get in there. So without further ado, I will get on to my finished object. And Claudia, this is my birthday present from you. This lovely slouchy hat with a pom-pom on top, which is made from a Karen cupcake, and this was their steel colourway, I think it was. Ooh, was it? Am I getting that confused with something else? Anyway, it's a gorgeous colourway. So it has these broad bands of colour, but they're tonal and they contain flecks of the other colours within them. And I could not be happier. It's wet at the moment, but it smells lovely because I've soaked it using my Eucalan, and I'm currently drying it, so it's not quite dry. So I won't put it on, but I will, when it is dry, I will put it on for you next week. I'm hoping, well, I will be wearing this on Monday morning as I go to work, so I'm really very pleased with this. It's come up really well. This is a Tin Can Knits pattern, a free pattern called Barley, which is they have a simple range for people learning to knit, and the basic decoration on this hat, which I think you can probably see better now, is this central panel of garter stitch, and the rest is stocking stitch all the way around, or stockinette as it's now referred. So there are several techniques involved in making this, but it's a very good project for beginners, and I thoroughly recommend it. I made it slightly more complicated for myself in that I did a tubular 1x1 rib cast on, so there is no cast on line, and it's very stretchy all the way across the bottom. I'm really pleased with the way it's knit up, and as soon as it's dry, as I say, I'll be wearing that for work on Monday. I knit that on DPNs. It was my first foray into using DPNs. The cast on and 1x1 rib was knit using 3mm DPNs, and then the body of the knit was 4mm, which is what the pattern suggests. And once you've got the length of the hat, you then start the decrease rows, and it decreases very quickly, so in fact the hat finishes off extremely quickly. And you work down until you have, because there are 6 sections to the hat, so you work down until there is 1 stitch left in each of the 6 sections, and then you thread a long tail and pick up the 6 stitches with the darning needle, which pulls the hat closed at the top, and then I sewed on the pom-pom using the tail, so before weaving in the ends. So it's all a single item, and I'm really very pleased with it. So thank you, Claudia, for the yarn. I can't tell you how much I love those colours, and I can't wait until I'm wearing it, because it has been getting, although the daytime weather in the last week has been quite warm, the first thing in the morning at 5:30, 6:30 when I'm going to work, it's very nippy, and I have noticed how cold it has been really the last couple of mornings. So I'm getting to the point now where wearing the hat is going to help me tremendously, because part of my work requires me to be moving around the bus yard, downloading CCTV from vehicles. So I'm out. I try to catch I share my job effectively. There are 2 of us doing the same job, so that we've got cover from 6:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. But which means that there are lots of buses that will come back to the depot between 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock, so my colleague will get the downloads, and then there are lots of buses that will go out after 6:30 until about 7:30, so I can get the rest that he can't get the night before. So either they're scheduled to come in before 10 o'clock or they're scheduled to go out after 6:30, so that we can get as much of the stuff as we need. So the moment I arrive at work, I have to check the list, find out which buses, go and get them straight away. So I'm really out in the yard first thing in the morning when it is actually quite chilly. So that will be a great help to me. So thank you very much for that, Claudia. And I thoroughly enjoyed the process of knitting it up as well. So in fact, I therefore have no further finished objects. It occurs to me though that I haven't demonstrated. No, I think I was going to say I haven't. My works in progress are the socks, but I think I will leave those as part of the Vlogtober episodes, and so I won't talk about them here. As a final footnote, I have around about, I think it was 14 grams of the yarn left, so it wasn't quite yarn chicken, but I did use almost all of the mini cupcake yarn ball that is produced by Karen, so I can vouch that the adult male large hat, which is what that is, you can make one out of a Karen cake if you're knitting. I didn't crochet it in the end because the pattern for crocheting it, I didn't like the pattern particularly. It was a little bit dull, to be honest. I just wanted something a little bit more interesting, which is why I went for this knit instead. But maybe that just means I have to design my own beanie hat pattern, which wouldn't be too difficult to do. So maybe that's something I will get to work on. One of the many things I'm going to get to work on. So that's my finished object. I don't have any whips. So that's it. No, I was going to say that's the end of the episode. It isn't, don't worry. I'm never one who's short of things to talk about, as my mother would say. So I think I will move on then to acquisitions I didn't mention last time. And Bob, this is the moment you've been waiting for. I am naming Bob as my enabler in this instance. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned last time, Bob, Wendy and I went to Cirencester in Gloucestershire. Beautiful market town. We went to a couple of fabric shops, and that we had the intention of going for fabric. That's what we were doing. We went to fabric. We then walked out, and just a short way down the road is a coffee shop, and I suggested we have a coffee. But Bob said, no, first of all, let's go into this charity shop. So we went into this charity shop, and it's your fault, Bob. And in that charity shop was this heaping bag of yarn. I will get one of them out for you. There were 10 balls in this yarn bag. One of the labels had broken, and the yarn was coming unravelled, so in fact I've caked it up. But this skein of yarn is the So Crafty brand, which is from Aldi Supermarket's grocery store. I don't know if it's available in the States, but it certainly is available in the UK, and they normally retail around £3.50 for one of these skeins. I got 10 skeins for £10. I couldn't believe it. So I have 10 this is their Silver Sparkle baby yarn. It's 100%, well, it's not 100% acrylic, it is. Sorry Bob, my glasses are not next to me. I thought they were, but I read something over there, so they're on the table, so I'm not going to be able to read the label properly. But in fact, it's 97% acrylic, and then 3% is the sparkle thread. So it's effectively acrylic yarn. It's really very nice. It's quite soft, even with the metallic metal sparkle running through it. And I have 10 100-gram balls of this, which is more than enough for me to make a couple of things for the new babies in my life. So I know what I'm going to be turning that into, and I just need to knuckle down and crack on with it. This is a chunky yarn, so bulky if you're in the US. So it uses an 8mm hook. So this is something I want to crochet with. I think I might make a few of the star pillows with this. I think with the sparkle on there and the single colour, this grey, silver colour, is going to look really quite pretty. So I think that's probably what I'll do. I can make those star cushions very quickly. It doesn't take me very long at all to whip those up. So I think I will make at least a couple of those anyway. So that was the major acquisition. But that yarn was actually sitting in this lovely yarn basket. Again, I've seen these are available in Aldi as well. I didn't check the price, to be honest, but I only paid a couple of pounds for this, and it's already got plenty of my yarn in, but it's got this lovely plastic pocket which allows me to put scissors and crochet hooks and needles in there, so it's everything I need to just carry around into the next room with me if I'm wanting to watch TV with Andy, for example, the Formula 1 tomorrow morning, although I think he's actually on early, so he'll watch the recording later when he comes in. So, but I just think these cars are just, with the dogs in, are just so cute. And then the little kennels below, I just think the whole thing is bright and cheerful and summery, and just what I need at this moment in time. I also, and this is entirely my fault, Claudia, so I do take responsibility sometimes for my own acquisitions, having blamed Bob extensively. Part of the joy of this sock knitting machine, which I really am enjoying using, is that I can get my dozens of skeins of sock yarn made up into sock tubes quite quickly. But as part of that, I'm not sure about... I'm at the moment splitting up the sock yarn into, if it's a 100-gram skein, I'm splitting it into 250s and then making each of the tubes out of the 50 grams of yarn. That, of course, leaves nothing for the toes, heels and cuffs. So my intention is to do the toes, heels and cuffs in different yarn. I have tried it, the first one I was trying with another sparkle yarn, but in fact it's an acrylic yarn, and I don't think it's a good idea to mix yarn types anyway, but although I do hand wash my handmade socks. But also I'm just not liking the colour combination. The white is too bright with the teal. So I thought, well, I need to have some similar 70-25 sock yarn that will allow me to make contrasting toes, heels and cuffs. So I bought a couple of the Signet yarns, Truly Wool Rich. Yes, Truly Wool. I don't know why it's called Truly Wool Rich. It used to be called Wool Rich. It's now Truly Wool Rich. It's exactly the same amount of wool as in the Wool Rich. So they've put Truly in for, I don't know, marketing reasons perhaps. This is a 75-25 wool nylon mixture. I've got a dark grey and a cream ball. And there you are, Wendy. I'm calling them balls for you. And these are both, I think, 50 gram. Yes, they are both 50-gram balls. So if it's 5 or 6 grams per toe heel cuff, then I can get 2 toe heel cuffs out of both of them. And then just buy some more when I need to. So I think it's a case of the darker wools, the darker tubes will have the lighter contrast, and the lighter tubes will have the darker contrast. And I think cream and grey rather, are going to go with pretty much everything. So that was, and of course, I should have walked away then, but did I? No. You'll remember last week that I'd seen this beautiful hank of yarn, so I had to buy the other one. It was sitting there, it was by itself. What was I supposed to do? And as I say, this is staggeringly 100 grams of 4-ply yarn. I think this is... Oh, where are we? Oh, it's this awful thing. I don't recall now whether this is a 75-25. And I really can't see the writing, so I'm not going to strain. but it's lovely and soft and squishy. I think it's a 75-25. I think I remember saying it was 75-25. In this apricot, peachy, beige, brown kind of colour. You're not quite, because it's dark outside and I'm using artificial light, you're not quite getting the tonal quality of these, I guess. But that's not a... that's probably a good representation, although it's slightly brighter than it is in reality. But once you've got one, you might as well have the other. You know, what can I say? What can I say? And yes, I should have stopped there, but I didn't, because behind the counter, it's terrible, they know exactly where to put these things, was this Artisano 4-ply. And this is just, I love this colour. It's actually not as turquoise as it's coming across on there. It's much more muted than that. Its official colourway is denim, and so it's kind of like what's it kind of like? It's difficult to say. It's not really like jeans either, so it's not. I wouldn't have called it denim, but I'm just looking at the camera. I think actually the bottom layer is probably the more accurate reflection of the colour. It's just, I just love it. It's just beautiful. I saw it. I looked at it and I wanted to resist. I so wanted to resist. And then I thought, no, why not? So I bought it anyway. And with my sock machine, I know it's going to be used because I will be able to get these knit up very quickly. And I don't know, maybe not, because I might want to do a particular patterned yarn, a particular patterned sock for this. Because the yarn is a solid, it's not tonal at all, it is a solid colour. Perhaps a vanilla sock is going to be a little too plain, but I'll give it some thought. There's no hurry. I've got plenty of other sock yarn to work my way through in the first place. But yes, sorry, I'm making a real hash of winding up this hank. I don't know why it's proving to be so obdurate. Oh, I'll sort it out later. When in doubt, give up. So those were my acquisitions for the week in terms of yarn and accessories, I guess. I was watching Jada in Stitches because I love her, and I'm sure I don't need to introduce her to any of you who are crocheters, because I'm sure you will have seen her wonderful little videos that she produces each Friday, her tutorials on amigurumi and decorations and appliques and so on. And in preparation for Halloween, which is a bigger deal on your side, on the Canadian and American side of the pond, than it is in the UK, although it has picked up a little for those who have young children. It's never been a particularly big celebration here, but I like to decorate the sitting room with a little bit of Halloweeny things. I made, as you might remember, if you follow me on Instagram, I made some bunting with pumpkins and ghosts, which I think was Happy Berry Crochet had those patterns. Once I put them up towards the end of the month, I will show them again on the video, so that those of you who didn't follow me on Instagram will have access and see what they are. But she required a particular cotton thread. I think it was, I can't remember the size now, but I happened to look in my mother's stash that I brought back just recently, and lo and behold, I actually have the exact right size and colour of cotton, this lovely white cotton yarn, and it's a 50 gram skein, and I think is actually completely unused. Looking at it, yes, both of the ends are underneath the sticker on the inside, so in fact it's never actually been used. But I was somewhat taken aback when I saw the price tag. It's a number 3, that's right. Because staggeringly, the price of this yarn was 88p. And for this to be 88p means we must be looking at cotton yarn that my mother bought perhaps in the early to mid 1980s. So this is probably 30 years old. So it rather took me aback. 88p, if only life were that cheap today. Although, of course, wages would be considerably lower if prices were. But yes, so there we are, a blast from the past, an 88p 50-gram ball of cotton. So fortunately, I don't have to go out and buy any, which is a great blessing, because I think this would cost me about £7 or £8 now to buy the same thing. So that's quite a price difference. And the final thing that I actually bought this week was a book, and this was with the little bit of money left from my birthday gifts from family and friends. And the book is called Tapestry Crochet. Now, it's not a different method of crochet, it's colourwork crochet. And I'll show you some of the... It's an American terms book, and the word colour is spelt using... without a U, so I think it's an American book. But that in no way makes it any less good. These are the samples of things that are made in this book. So it's tapestry crochet in the sense that it's crochet that creates a pattern like a tapestry, rather than being tapestry weaving or knitting, or sewing rather. And there are some really interesting ideas. I mean, I'm not going to go into the detail, but she even... the author is Maria Goldberg, and it's tapestry, crochet and more. And she even has a section on granny squares, and she does the usual teaching people how to make granny squares, and that's all very good for beginners. But she immediately launches into a very modern take on how to use granny squares and to make this kind of blanket. This blanket, believe it or not, is made up of granny squares. I'm not going to give the details away because I don't think it would be fair to the designer to give her patterns away free as such. But this is also granny squares. And I've read the details of how to do it, and they are proper granny squares. They're 2-colour granny squares. But they are made with a chain that is turned into a loop using a slip stitch, and then the shells put into the middle, 4 shells of 3 trebles or 3 double crochets into the middle of that, and then and 2 chains for each of the corners, and then doing that in increasing number as it grows out. So the construction is exactly that of a granny square, and she even the colour work is done in such a way that you only have the beginning and ends. You don't cut the yarn when you change colour. The colour is carried through. So you actually only have the very beginnings to ends to weave in and the very ends to weave in, if you see what I mean. And then she does a more standard hexagon design. And I was just really taken by that. And then she updates the crochet, as you probably are aware, began really to take off in the 19th century as an alternative to the very expensive handmade bobbin lace that was coming out of places like Belgium and France, particularly Belgium, because the French Revolution had closed most of the nunneries, and it was the nunneries that were making the best lace for sale. And crochet was an alternative to bobbin lace, and very fine cotton and very small hook sizes were used. It would be, in UK terms, probably a size 15 hook. In the US, I mean, I don't know how US, in the UK, sizes of metal are determined by the number of times it has to go through a roller. So the higher the number, the more times it's been through the roller, and therefore the thinner it is. In the US, I think your system of counting is exactly the opposite. You start with a very low number. Sorry, start with a very high number for your smallest size, and for your largest. I'm guessing this completely wrong. You start with the low number for your smallest size and then grow. As the number increases, so does the size of the hook. That's what I was trying to say. Stop, think, and then speak. So the crochet lace was often used for things like decoration on the edge of a pillowcase or at the end of a sheet where it was folded back over the blankets in the morning, so it made the edge of the sheets and the bed look pretty. So that was often, and obviously for doilies and for things on cabinets to stop scratches and the like. So that was its origin. Was this kind of, in large part, was this decorative strip at the edge of a piece of fabric. And so she's taken this idea and has developed it, and she's produced these lovely chains of it's a kind of combination of paper chain and bunting, really, and taken it even further with this lace vine. Sorry, the lights are reflecting on it. I think that's better. You can see it. So you know, I'm quite eager to get involved in this because some of the earlier stuff is also fascinating, and she provides lots of charts to follow as well. So I mean, I'm really taken by what she calls this Africa bag, and she provides the charts for different decorations for this bag, and I'm really quite, I was intrigued by the title, and now I've seen the book. It's not a very big book, and it wasn't very expensive. I think is that $17, $17.95 US dollars. So it's $18, and that is about £15. It cost me. So it's you know, it's not cheap, but it's not massively expensive either. And I like the fact that it's ring bound, so the patterns will lie flat as I'm working without me having to break the spine of a book, which, as I said last time, I really don't like. I do have 4 other acquisitions, in fact. These I didn't buy. At work, in the main area where the drivers pay in their takings for the day and where they come through to sign on and sign off work every day, there is an impromptu kind of lending library stroke disposal area where people bring in books or videos and DVDs and the like that they no longer want in case anybody else wants them. And somebody had brought in 4 crafting books, and I was pointed to these, and I thought, you know what, yes, those are exactly the kind of things. So I myself have left books there for other people before now, so it's a way of just passing things around that you're no longer using yourself without if somebody else is interested. In fact, I think I gave a couple of cookery books there a couple of years ago because they were duplicate copies, so I didn't need them. They had been bought as presents, so yeah, I kept the ones that were given as a present and gave away the ones that I'd bought, because I think it's important to respect the gift. So you never give away the gift, which is I say never. The Star Wars set. I'll be giving that one away because I've got 2 of them and they were both gifted to me, so I don't know which one now was the one from A or which one was the one from B, so I'm not slighting either of them by giving away their box, as it were. So I have this, which is Love Crochet, 25 Simple Projects, and the thing that really took me would be the cupcakes, so I think I might make a few of those. They're just little, I mean, most of them are items for around the home, but I also quite like this cobweb lace, which is made using a 4-ply yarn with a significantly larger hook. So it's a 4-ply yarn using a 5mm hook, so that's quite considerably larger than you would normally use, and it creates this lovely lacy effect. I mean, they're using mohair as well, but even for any 4-ply yarn it wouldn't necessarily give exactly the same effect, but it gives this rather almost ethereal look, as though it's not entirely there. So yeah, so I've got a book on crochet, a book on handmade crafts, and then 2 sewing books for either stitching and then easy patterns. So I will look through these and make some things and then put them back down in the lending area, and then somebody else will get some enjoyment from them as well. So that's all of my acquisitions for the week. So the kind of big news that I haven't shared with people outside the UK is that Strictly Come Dancing is back on our screens. Yay! In other parts of the world, this is known as Dancing with the Stars. I think the name for Strictly Come Dancing was a combination of the 1960s, 70s, 80s BBC television programme, which followed the national competitions for dancing, which was called Come Dancing, and a 1980s movie about dancing competitions called Strictly Ballroom. So it was the Dancing with the Stars idea is effectively both Come Dancing and Strictly Ballroom combined in a single entity, and is called Strictly Come Dancing. And it's such an enjoyable program. It's glitz and glam on a cold, dark Saturday night. It's light entertainment for all the family to enjoy. It's live music, very good singers and very good band, and it's actually quite enjoyable watching the development of the skill sets of the dancers. Yes, those who are very capable almost from the off and are just exciting to watch, but also the less good dancers who are stretching themselves beyond the limits that they could ever imagine passing and gaining a huge amount from it. And it's just, I just find the whole program is just extremely positive, extremely enjoyable. I love it, and I thoroughly enjoy watching it. So the other nice thing about Strictly is the grand final is the Saturday before Christmas. So the moment Strictly Come Dancing starts, we are on the countdown to Christmas. Now, there are 15 couples in the UK version, and there are usually 3 or 4 couples in the grand final, so it's 11 or 12 weeks long for the whole programme, with 1 couple leaving each week. So I'm actually recording this and having to record Strictly Come Dancing, and I will watch it while this is actually rendering later. So I see what I sacrifice for my art. So if you're in the UK, I'm sure the kind of people who enjoy knitting and crochet and sewing and weaving and spinning are exactly the kind of people who will love Strictly Come Dancing. And it's great entertainment. You can knit and crochet the difficult bits while the judges are talking and while the introductory blurb is on, and then you stop and enjoy the dance, and then you carry on while the judges comments, and so it's actually really wonderful crocheting TV, I find. So that's my recommendation for those viewers in the UK. I don't know that it would be of any interest to people outside the UK, but I'm sure your own versions of Dancing with the Stars, I can thoroughly recommend them if they're anything at all like Strictly Come Dancing. And then my final recommendations are books. Now, I say books because I have 5 of them. It may be, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, and it was something that Clarissa Beth's mother, Caroline, mentioned in her comments on my podcast, which was that I like to witter and go off at tangents. And I refer to going off at tangents, and she enjoys that reference as a maths professor at university. I don't know if I have told her or revealed in this podcast, because I don't recall having said it, but forgive me if I have, that my undergraduate degree was actually mathematics, my first undergraduate degree, that is. And although I love history and I love theology and I love the past, I also love the future. I love ideas, I love discovery. And as I've said many times in terms of my brand identity, if you like, of hand-me-downs, the point of hand-me-downs is to take from the past and to give to the future. And you don't just, if it's just a case of unchanging tradition, as it were, if it's a case of just being a conduit rather than adding to the tradition and passing on an enriched version of what you've received, then you're actually, I think you're actually not really part of the tradition at all, because if you weren't there, it wouldn't matter, because it would be unchanged. The whole point for me of hand-me-downs is that I have received, I have developed with my own experience and views and interests, and then I hand on, as I'm doing at the moment. I'm teaching a friend at work to knit, and so that he can teach his daughter to knit, and it's going extremely well, and I'm teaching him my interest, the things I like to do, because that's what you do. The things that interest you, it's easier to teach the things that interest you, because your enthusiasm for what you're teaching will communicate itself to the other party and they will become enthused. But it's important then not to restrict them and to allow them to develop their own interests within the same area. And this curiosity, this voyage of discovery, this pioneering work is very much part of my mathematical identity. So I thought I'd talk about a few different maths books, and I don't mean textbooks, but books about mathematical subjects that interest me at different levels that might interest some of you. So one of the first ones is a book called I Used to Know That, Maths, Stuff You Forgot from School. And what this is this is almost, if you like, a primer for parents, because you do a lot of stuff at school, and some of it you use all the time, and others bits you probably never consciously use, but unconsciously use, and other bits you just never use ever again. And this takes you through in a very fun and interesting way, and is more of a reminder of all the things that you once knew, and will come flooding back to you once you read this. So if you are just wanting to dip your toe back into the world of mathematical ideas, this is a very good start. I don't know if this is available stateside. It's by Chris Waring with a foreword by Caroline Taggart. It's published by Michael O'Mara Books Limited. It is printed in Great Britain, but I honestly just don't know if it's available outside of the UK. But if it is, it's well worth a look. If you want to have if you have a slightly better grasp on mathematics and a better interest, but don't want to get into highfalutin stuff, but enjoy the puzzle side of mathematics, which is what really appeals to me in many respects, then Why Do Buses Come in Threes? The Hidden Mathematics of Everyday Life by Rob Easterway and Jeremy Wyndham, with a foreword by Tim Rice, is probably the kind of thing you'll be interested in. And it takes common ideas about mathematics. Why can't I find a four-leafed clover? Which then goes off into a whole discussion of the Fibonacci series and other such related matters. Which way should I go, which is about Euler's hypothesis, or Euler's problem of crossing all of the bridges in a single continuous path over the river, which, by the way, is this. It was impossible until the addition of this later bridge. With this number of this odd number of bridges, it was actually impossible to cross all of the bridges in one go. But this extra bridge then made it possible, and it explains the mathematics behind that. So, if you have a reasonable grasp of mathematics, but no in-depth knowledge of mathematical problems, then this is a very good book. And then, if you have a higher grasp of mathematics and a real interest in abstract mathematical problems, Imagining Numbers, particularly the square root of -15 by Barry Mazieu, is a highly recommended read. This book I could not put down, but it does require a large degree of thought. Not as bad as I would guess. This is beginning GCSE. This is having finished your GCSEs and going on to A-level. This is having finished A-level maths. So that's the kind of level that I would put these books at. So again, this book, rather than dealing with everyday life, is now dealing with some abstract philosophical mathematical ideas. But if you are really, really interested in mathematics and the universe, then I thoroughly recommend The Does Happen by Brian Cox and John Forshaw. That's this book. This deals with quantum mechanics, quantum mathematics. And as has been said, I can't remember who said it, but if you think you can understand quantum mechanics, then you don't. This book is to be read by people who have finished their A-level mathematics and have a good grasp of physics as well. It will still melt your brain and make your eyes hurt to read, but it's worth the intellectual pursuit of knowledge. Most people will recognise Brian Cox, Professor Brian Cox, from television. He has done several major BBC series on the wonders of the solar system, the wonders of the universe, and also hosts with Jeff Forshaw rather, the Infinite Monkey Cage on Radio 4, which is a mathematical program. With all of these, and there is often a misunderstanding of the relationship, in my experience, between religion and science. I am a person of quite strong religious convictions, but also of a strong mathematical and scientific frame of mind. And my love and pursuit of history is done with the scientific method and the historical method forefront in my mind. I can't pretend to be a child of a different era. I am a child of the post-Enlightenment modern world. And that's not a bad thing. And I think possibly people misunderstand the relationship between science and religion because of fundamental misunderstandings in the vocabulary used on both sides, and because exponents of both mathematics, or both science and religion, have tended to make pronouncements about the other side's subject matters that they are simply not qualified to make. There's one of the most significant scientific breakthroughs of the 20th century, which is still really, we're getting closer and closer to it, but still don't have a full grasp of it, is the Big Bang theory of the creation of the universe. And it may be a surprise to most people to know that the idea of the Big Bang and the expansion of the huge expansion of the universe right at the beginning of time was not actually Edwin Hubble's idea, but was the idea of a Belgian Monsignor, Georges Lemaitre, who was professor of physics at the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium, and who wrote about both the Big Bang and the expansion of the universe 2 years before Edwin Hubble wrote about Hubble's constant. Lemaitre had actually written about what became Hubble's constant before Hubble did. Just so that this isn't an attack on scientists talking about rot about religion, Lemaitre had to go and see Pope Pius XII in the 1930s to beg him to stop trying to speak about the cosmology of physics. Lemaitre was a fervent Catholic and a fervent scientist, and he saw no conflict between the two, as long as scientists talked about scientific matters and religionists talked about religious matters, and that two different ways of viewing the universe are not necessarily in conflict simply because they come up with two different understandings, because you can have an interrelationship between those understandings, but you have to recognise that a religious and philosophical understanding is not the same thing as a scientific and mathematical understanding, and vice versa. So he was against his co-religionists from coercing a religious view onto scientific data, but was equally against his scientific atheistic colleagues, thereby saying that their scientific demonstrations demonstrated the inadmissibility of religious faith, and that the argument with Pius XII, which Pius actually humbly accepted the rebuke, but the argument that Lemaitre was trying to defeat with Pius was that his hypothesis of the primitive atom, the Big Bang, the moment of singularity that creates the Big Bang, or that the Big Bang blows out. Pius XII was trying to say that this validated Catholicism, and Lemaitre rightly said, no, it doesn't, because it's not talking about Catholicism. It's not talking about why the Big Bang. It's talking about how the Big Bang. And that, for Lemaitre, is the point, that science is about the how and religion and philosophy is about the why. And that you do get the occasional person who can cross from one side to the other and speak with equal authority on both sides of the conversation, but they are very few and far between. Very few mathematicians have a deep understanding of theology and philosophy and anthropology and all the necessary sciences that underpin religious identity, and very few anthropologists and archaeologists and philosophers have a deep understanding of abstract mathematical principles and the physical rules of the universe. So my own view is that the two are not incompatible, but that they are also not unifiable. They are rather like, very good analogy. It's just occurred to me. They are rather like two different types of thread. Yes, you can knit them together, but they're not necessarily going to make a very good fabric, and they could easily fall apart because they will pull when you wash them in different ways. The tensions will vary, and they're just not meant to be together. But they're both perfectly valid, and they're very good for the things that they're good for, but they don't necessarily have to be forced to work together. That you can understand the underlying principles of both as separate entities, because they're not actually directly talking about, although they may be having the same object under discussion, they're not talking about it in the same language. They're talking about it in completely different ways, from a completely different standpoint, and for a completely different reason. So that's why I think in the past maybe I've given the impression that I'm not in favour of the modern world and forward thinking. that could not be further from the truth. I've always wanted to be a spaceman. I've always wanted to go into space. It will never happen, but I've always wanted to do it, and I've always wanted to know about the very frontiers of scientific understanding, as far as I'm capable of understanding it, because believe me, as I said, with this book, your brain will melt. Just be prepared for the fact that your brain will melt into a little puddle on the floor, and there is not very much you can do about that, because that's just the nature of the subject. And so finally, on a kind of interrelated matter, not quite mathematical, but more of a philosophical treatise on a scientific subject, I have Weaving the Web, The Past, Present and Future of the World Wide Web by its inventor Tim Berners-Lee. This is a fascinating book, and I thoroughly recommend reading this if you have any interest at all in technology or in mathematics, but not from this is not written from a technical standpoint. This is written from a world view that the inventor of the World Wide Web, as opposed to the internet, the World Wide Web specifically is about the connection of documents on the web using originally hypertext markup language. Basically, you type in the address of the resource and then put a link into another document, and you click on that link and it takes you. We're all familiar with this now from web pages, but that was the original idea of Tim Berners-Lee. And you may remember the 2012 opening ceremony for the London Olympics, when this house in the middle of all these dancers suddenly collapsed and there was a man sitting at a computer. And I'm not sure that many people realised exactly who that man was, but that was Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who had been the man responsible for inventing the web, not the internet. People often confuse the web and the internet as being the same thing. They are very much not. The internet is the physical connection of computers to each other via other computers, whereas the web is the way in which documents on those computers are connected to each other, and copies are made and transferred and linked and all the rest of it. So just, it's the software to the hardware, if you like. So it's well worth a read, well worth a read. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough. I'm coming up to almost the hour mark, I think, yes. So as I said, I can speak for England. There is no subject about which I will not have an opinion, even if it's ill-informed and incorrect. Having said all that, I hope I've not rambled too aimlessly for you, and I hope you found some interest in some of the things I've been talking about, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon, next week for the next podcast. And if you're following me on the October past podcast, then I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. So for now, good night.